A very good morning to you all. Today in this video we will be discussing the Hindu editorial page analysis and also one of the important articles confined to examination perspective. Today is 29th of August 2020. This is the important article. We will be focusing on GST in the second article discussion of today. Force majeure means act of God, forceful act of God, regarding the GST, that is goods and tax. Before I begin, I welcome you all to Wifisestudykaro, where I do daily editorials and also topic discussions, interesting facts, job update. It's also my Instagram, Facebook and also website Wifisestudykaro. You can follow from there itself. The links are given in the description. Before I begin, I am Prashant. I request you all to subscribe so that you will not miss any further update. States can apply for UGC for the extension of exam deadlines. This is Supreme Court. So what UGC has given the dates for examinations to be conducted, but states are opposing it, so they went for Supreme Court. And what Supreme Court said is that under the Disaster Management Act 2005, you can take a proper measures so that the UGC can listen to it. So what is Disaster Management Act 2005 says? So states are empowered under this act to override the University Grants Commission exam guidelines in order to protect the human lives amid some pandemic situations like the COVID-19, said the Supreme Court. So this is the judgment given by the Supreme Court, a 3-bench bench led by Ashok Bhushan, upheld by the power of state and its disaster management authority for the countermand the revised UGC guidelines July 6 to conduct the final year and the terminal examination by September 30. So saving the lives is the important issue in this disaster. So in case of disaster, the priority of all the authorities under the Disaster Management Act immediately combat the disaster contained to save the lives of the human. So saving life of beings is the paramount important, said the Justice 160. The judgment ised. So states can now apply for UGC for deadline. So time given to the varsity between the July 31st to September 30 for the preparations. So for the future carry, final year exams is an opportunity for the students to show optimum caliber. So it paves his future career both in academics and employment, said by the Justice. So this is regarding how the Supreme Court had dealt with the UGC and the state, and how the states want to take the Disaster Management Authority Act 2005 into concern to postpone or to curtail the present scenario and also save the lives of the students. The next article is regarding the GST, but before I get into this article, I want to remind you one film by the Akshay Kumar, which he was a practicing lawyer. His income is not that sufficient, so he takes a loan from the government in that film and builds a house, but due to the sudden jolt or rains or hava created, the house will be damaged. So he claims the insurance. But what insurance company that we cannot give you insurance under the act of God. So that particular claim is under the act of God. It cannot claim because of the disaster created by the havoc or sudden or so-called the act of God concerns. So this is what I correlate with the situation, same situation, what a government, central government is saying to the state government, that it cannot give the sufficient funds for the GST under the act of God. So what is exactly the central government is saying? Let us understand. So in act of God, coercive not cooperative federalism, in bridging the GST gap, the center ought to help states through consolidated funds of India. So coercive means powerful, federalism means governing by the government. So GST is an act of God, and it says that force majeure means an act of God which confines to the any havoc or some of the devastation created by the thing called act of God. So social contact between the states and central governments is necessary. So what exactly in 2017 what happened? The central government has proposed GST. So states they also said that states faced revenue deficits after GST introduction. So the center would make a good and the loss for the first 5 years. So what states have extended the support to the GST. So states sacrificed their constitutional powers, so called the granted powers of the taxation in the national interest. So that allowed the center to announce the dawn of one nation one tax at the stroke of 2017 midnight. So when the GST compensation exceeded the amount that has to be paid to the states, now the central government is observed to the surplus. The economy had also slowed down due to the decline in some of the sectors due to the pandemic situation. So this commitment made between the states extended their support for the 5 years by the center to bear for 5 years. So the states accepted GST and became one nation one tax at 2017. So it is one thing to say that there is no funds available, but entirely another to assert that there is no commitment to pay compensation. So what I compare is that commitment versus compensation. What government wants to give is that they have given a commitment that we will pay, we will also bear the loss for 5 years. In 2017, central government has said to the state government that whatever the loss incurred by the GST, we will pay or we will bear it for the 5 years. But right now, what happened is that the commitment given by the central government will be now as a compensation. But according to the 92, center has to pay for the compensation. So this is regarding the 101 amendment in 2017 passed due to the GST bill. So paragraph 92 of the Standing Committee report shows that center assured the payment for the compensation of a specified period if there is such a loss. So assurances were made in the earlier, but when Modi government introduced the GST compensation cess, many states pointed out that proceeds from the cess to be inadequate to fund the losses faced by the states after the rolling out of GST. So center asked the state for the mortgage their future to sustain the present situation. So cooperative federalism has transformed into coercive federalism. So in general, therefore, there was never any ambiguity in the minds of states to succor will be offered to the center. So the constitutional framework that assured the GST does not provide an escape clause for the acts of God. So states never expected to be disappointed so early. So the central government has led them down thrusting one of the two options, both of which involve borrowing the state, and this is akin to the states to mortgage their future to sustain their present. So cooperative federalism now have been transformed into coercive federalism. Coercive means powerful. So in the earlier it was a cooperative federalism because states have cooperated with the center to bear the loss for the 5 years of whatever the GST incurred, whatever the loss incurred by the GST. So states have extended their support for the GST, so that at that time that became in one nation one tax. But now what had happened is that the cooperative federalism has now become a coercive federalism, means the cooperation now became into the powerful federalism because state had vested the powers. State as an doesn't have any exclusive powers when center tells that they need to abide and accept it. So center is best placed. Central government has the ability to raise the resources through means that they are not available for the state. So monetary measures are the monopoly for the central government. Even borrowing is more efficient and less expensive if it is undertaken by the central government. So over the last 6 years, the center has continually concerned resources that state have been shared by the states. So the 14th Finance Commission allotted 42% of central government tax revenues to the states. However, accountability initiatives analysis states budget shows that only 30% of the central tax collection is between 2015 to 2019 period. The center had raised around 3,606 this gross revenue through in the surcharges during the period of 2019 to 2020. So there is not shareable to the states. Similarly, cess on the petroleum products have resulted in center receiving 60%, that is more, in the revenue tax, with only 40% going to the state. This is not a 50-50 condition, like state have to share 50% of the GST and center have to share 50%. But in general, what had happened is the center has taken 60% less on the petroleum, and just only 40% was given to state government. So equal representatives of the citizens of a federal republic in India, state government expected the center to demonstrate an empathy when they are bearing the brunt of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown that were announced without the consultation. So this is the most appropriate time to provide them a relief through the Consolidated Fund of India. In general, Prime Minister Narendra Modi described the GST as a instead of goods and service tax, he just assures every time as a good and simple tax, which would assure a glorious economic future for India. Unfortunately, for the last 3 years, the harsh reality is that states are starving or staring at the grave or sorry times ahead. So this is what regarding the GST, how the center have became a pursue federalism government rather than cooperative because of the loss of pandemic. But even center can even revamp from the situation. They need to take into consideration the current present scenario, and they need to withdraw this decision. So this is regarding the GST and how the center and state have to take into measures and how they went regarding the representations and assurances made on the goods and services tax and this. The next article is regarding the national well-being and the counts that matters. The gist of the article is that a person who is from one of the concerned families, especially this is focused upon the woman development, how the child is developed into woman and woman to mother and mother to the children, how the nourishment and the fertility and also the system, how the things should go, is particularly framed and drafted in this article. It was like excellent article. So the proportions of the pregnancy in India startups without the consent of women, even the wheel of marriage cover it physically and culturally. So as a decennial census operation are limited. Decennial means a 10 years period. So 10 years period of census or operational are limited. India needs a new ways to know its cumulative human capital and potential. So since India's crime data according to the system is not built in capture satellites, we do not know what proportion of pregnancies of India start off without a consent of women. So what author says is that without the consent of women, the pregnancies are happening, and we are even through the wheel of marriage, which covers legally and culturally. So what author is saying in that, so without a proper food, diet, and also the proportions, without the consent, without what the wheel of marriage is covered, so this critical of individual, community, and also well as also anxiety-loaded pregnancy is inadequately quantified by the current clinical or epidemiological tools. So there are some parameters which are valuable. So not to stick to the decennial census, that is 10 years operation. The parameters are the weight at birth, height, weight at the first time when child has going to the school, and the first time pregnancy, the comparison with the men in terms of earning. So underage marriages, ensuring secondary school competitions for every child, especially in the rural areas, have also reaching the impact, and also there is a need to be persuaded by singly minded. So basic education at different levels of the biological differences and how the things went in the school, and also some of the things which should be noted at the change or transformation into the provisioning separate functional toilets and sanitary pads for girls, and also teaching boys biological gender differences of their own male and female are the key enablers for ensuring gender parity in the school competition or school completion rates. So teaching school level girls and boys the nation or the notion of the consent, or also the basics of contraception, will ensure that the start of every pregnancy will be desired and happy ones. The births in the country, not every pregnancy ends in a live birth, efficaciously captured by the 6 word allegedly. So a desired pregnancy is supported by a fully functional healthcare system able to anticipate complications before the time and facilitating a safe delivery. So currently stillbirth number in India are not hard to pin down, but after accounting the background losses or abortions, there is still remain a distressingly large number of stillbirths, sometimes misrecorded as early neonatal deaths. So despite the trend towards nuclear families, pregnancies in India are still familial events. So outcomes are eagerly anticipated by more than just the parents, and not the stillbirths are a rude end of many fond wishes. So a young and short underschooled woman is more likely to have bad pregnancy outcome or a smaller than expected. So regarding the birth rate, the abortions and neonatal deaths are very frequent, but there should be a check between these births, and there should be proper measures to be taken at that particular age. For a nation with the plans to assign digital health IDs to everyone, this is not at all a tall task. So with additionally required, what is making is that this moving average data leaves is visible to the people and the government. So it should also put to all the rest all debate about whether some Indians are born more equally. So height weight proportions are also important. So good start is the advantage nutritious food first from the mother's breast, complementary foods, and repeated bouts of vaccine at the preventable or easily treatable illnesses. So height weight proportions at school level should be recorded without the which facilitates the correlation between the birth weights at the school level itself. So ensuring that the mark is recorded for every child who enters the school, which will allow for the correlation within the birth weights, and the country can bank on its future. So every child born in India is to be considered as a Ratna or a jewel and handled as such. Some of them will go on to get the formal Bharat Ratna tag eventually. So there should also be an improved learning. So schooling is a socio-economic and gender parity springboard. If school completion rates should show no gender or rural, urban or parental income divides. So consequently, India may also bring down its maternal mortality ratios, but also improve the neonatal or under 5 mortality rates through delayed marriages and exercising of reproductive choices by empowered young women. So grading cognitively ill-equipped or ill-taught children on a standardized test is much waste of effort, as letting a large number of young people graduate through the courses which are hopelessly out of sync with the expectations of the job interview board. The recently unveiled new education policy seeks the remedy for this. So it will be a while before we can measure any of the talked about of hopefully intended outputs or impacts of this policy. So unimaginative teaching of the anemic children will double the whammy, particularly addressed to the protein-rich midday meals. So deworming school toilets, sanitary pads and bicycles for girls are progressively policy steps of the right direction. Adding remedial training and also affirmative feedback for the teachers will transform the workplace and also happen irrespective of the gender. Right economy stimuli, anticipating the potential workplace disruptions and also supporting healing and retaining discriminalizing entrepreneurial failure will go a long way to eliminating the work and also livelihood related anxieties, making them way back home, and also domestic violence. As a society, we need to understand and make a leeway for the failure and not stigmatize whether the school end is the early childhood during the miscarriages of the pregnancies or when the career business decisions go awry. So the timelessly data helps. So together these measurements will tell us far more about where we are going, and the tools to get the measurements exist. We just have to see them in real and able to be corrective actions where they are needed. So public health is about the people being not just about controlling disease outbreaks, but public health is about continued well-being of the people. So national education policy and national health policy will be a twin rail that India rides towards a true demographic dividends. So what author says is that the proportion of pregnancies of India and how the underage marriages will affect, and also height and weight proportions are needed. There should be improved learning at the age rather than just grinning and also focusing on the national education policy. The outcome is unimaginative teaching is anemic to the children, and also the need for the children is the knowledge of school toilets, deworming and sanitary pads and bicycles and progressive, and also there should be affirmative feedback to the teachers to transform the learning procedures, and also the data which should be available for everyone for the nation which plans for the data for digital health ID, so that it can build the census, so called the decennial census, and also operational moves for different age groups of the people, which will have the metabolic and also height weight ratio and nutritious food ratio, so that they can become a jewels or ratna in this present society. So this is how the data will help timelessly, and the national education policy and national health policy will be a twin railroads for India to drive a two demographical or so called the development of India. That's the end of article discussion. If you are new to my channel, I request you all to subscribe so that you will not miss any further updates. Thank you. Have a great day.